Hey, HCDA, and today we're playing some more Mindustry, and this time around I decided to go for the only sector that is actually threatening one of my own sectors, and that is the Infested Canyons. It has, yet again, an enemy base, so we're going to have to do some attacking ourselves. But let me go launch, and by the way, I am still on eradication difficulty, mostly because, well, I figured why not. There were actually a couple of people asking for that specifically, so I figured if it's doable, I might as well just stick to it. Now, let's see, we have quite a bit of enemy fortifications over here. There seem to be two main bases, well, maybe three. Let's check them out. So we have, do we have any production here? Yeah, we do have some production over here. Doesn't seem to be too well defended, honestly, compared to some of the bases we've dealt with before. This is just some duos, some repair. Okay, that's not too bad. This is definitely a little bit more skilled up with a couple of ripples. We can go right past this. It looks like we can actually use naval units in this level as well, considering, yep, we have water going pretty much anywhere we want to go, so we can use all the unit types available to us. That's very nice, actually. And then over here, what do we have here? Oh, these ripples are very well positioned. The only problem for them, at least, is that there's no air defense, so we can take those out with air units. Yeah, all in all, this seems actually very doable. Famous last words. Let's get to it. Well, we have almost zero building space ourselves. Look at these defenses that are, well, first of all, not too impressive. That's first of all. And second of all, the enemy is right around the corner. So we're going to have to make do with all of these defenses. We do have some anti-air, which I really appreciate the game starting me out with. Yeah, this is definitely not a lot of production we have to work with. We do have a naval factory already set up, so I guess that is nice. We have some derelicts over here that we can use to produce, I guess, some lead, some basic power. All in all, this is definitely not going to cut it for very long. Let's see what we can do with it. First of all, let's say we have kind of a basic setup for a power facility over here with already a cultivator. We can double up on those, maybe add one more of those, then add in some... I don't know, actually, why is there two belts over here? That seems a little weird. Anyway, we actually have enough production, I think, to add in another one over here if that's what we would want to do. We do need to make sure this power can actually reach our main base, otherwise we won't be producing anything whatsoever. Why am I doing it like this? We have better things. There we go. This should cover. Actually, we probably want to put it something like that. And yeah, that should cover our power production. Alright, so we have a little bit of kickstarting power going on here with the coal I brought and some free water production that doesn't require power, and that turned on all of this over here. So I am now actually producing apparently not all the things I need. Why is this not getting any water? That is because I'm not producing enough of it. Well, we can fix that with a couple of pumps. These are super cheap to make anyway. Why are you still not getting any water? There's like a pump straight over here. That is very strange. Well, it's getting water now. Actually didn't realize it, but there are solar panels right over here to do that kickstarting for me. But then again, there's no such thing as having too much power, and we're not doing anything else with that coal. Anyway, so I am going to take an approach to this level, which is based on just building as many units as I can without going too heavy, I think, on defensive lines, because we're going to need those units to punch a hole in the enemy. And if we do that, then we won't really need the turrets anymore, because, well, you know, the enemy is just going to die. We are going to get the first enemies in about 3 minutes. I'm hoping that these turrets will be sufficient for that, but we definitely also want to get those units up and running as quickly as possible. In order to do that, we are going to need silicon and graphite. We do have quite a bit of coal over here as well as lead, so that is everything we kind of need to do that. So let's get to it. Okay, so I am going to focus mostly on tier 2 units because I think they pack most punch, but I am going to produce some flares as well, so I have some mobile anti-air defense. At least I think, if I remember correctly, that the tier 2 flying units do not actually attack air. Can I tell this somewhere? No, actually they do attack both types of targets, so then in that case I should probably just focus on making those tier 2 units. Okay, there we go. So I decided to kickstart my unit production with the materials I actually brought with me. Now that is quite dangerous because that is going to be a heavy drain on both my silicon and my graphite. So I'm definitely going to have to make sure I also start producing that. But in the meanwhile, yeah, well, I might as well just start out production because that is the only thing standing between me and very angry enemies. Also, what is really annoying is that these defensive lines of the enemy actually start in the range of my own, and my own are getting taken out as a result of that. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a weird design if you ask me, but it does mean that I decided to put an additional salvo over here that I'm fueling with my little drill over here. Is that really efficient? Not really, but I'm definitely going to have to improve on this a little bit, depending on how many enemies I'm going to have to deal with. Speaking of graphite, I do actually have some production over here. It's not super efficient, but you know, these are still going to be pumping out at least 0.6 per second. Not the best use of these resources, honestly, but yeah, it's gonna have to do for now. Let's go into my schematics over here. We can set up pretty efficient type of graphite facility over here. I do need some additional water that I can get from over here, and I think that should do the trick. Now this is kind of right behind my front line, so it's not ideal, but yeah, I don't have that much space to work with, and I want to utilize this coal to make some silicon. Okay, there we go. I now have some silicon production up and running as well as some overflow of lead. You know, it's never going to be not useful. I also have a couple of monos already flying around mining some decent amount of copper for me. So all in all, that actually means we have most of the basics covered already, with the exception of pyrite and metaglass. We are going to need metaglass because we need that to produce naval units is the word I was looking for. And I also want to set up maybe a little bit of pyrite production because, as you saw in the last level, that means that pretty much any defense is going to be trivial, and I definitely do not want any damage to be done to this base. Actually didn't notice, but the first wave is already coming in, and it's 4 tier 2 units already. Now luckily I have plenty of those myself, twice as much to be exact, along with some turrets. So it shouldn't be too much of an effort taking that out, but yeah, we definitely need to make sure we are on the top of our game on eradication level. Now in the meanwhile, I've been trying to set up some production for metaglass over here. It's not working, but that's because I polluted my belts. That's the belt sorted. We're now actually producing some metaglass as well. That means I have everything I kind of need except for pyrite, and we do have some leftover production for both the well, sand. I have plenty of sand production over here, as well as coal and lead, so let's make some pyrite. Pyrite production up and running, and I had to redesign some of this spaghetti over here. I really hope you like spaghetti because this base is one big bowl of it. Mostly because there were a couple of lines interfering in each other, so I had some silicon where it didn't belong and things like that. Now, all in all, I think this is now working like intended. As you can see, we have a pyrite coming in, we have the metal glass coming in, and that means I am producing everything I need with the exception of titanium and plastinium, but that's not really high priority right now. So let's see, I think I'm gonna take all my units over here and I'm going to march them straight into this central point that should allow me to defend from both angles at the same time. Also gives me a little bit more building space along with that titanium that I just mentioned, as well as some more coal so we can really set up some proper defense. Okay, note to self, maybe it wasn't that smart to fly my flying units straight into all of this air defense, so I'm gonna move them back. Hopefully a couple of them at least survive. And then I'm going to once again clear all of this out. We have quite a few units incoming pretty much non-stop at this point, so it's going to be building up my defense while I'm clearing out the enemy. Okay, so while my units are taking out the last turrets over here, as well as the enemies that are trying to prevent me from doing exactly that, I am going to set up a line of salvos over here with some water pumps just to be sure they are optimally firing, and I'm going to bring in a supply line of pyrite. Now remember, I could probably have done this a lot sooner considering I brought a lot of pyrite with me, but at least now we're actively replenishing our supply of that. Okay, there we go. This is a pretty decent defense, I think. A couple of salvos along with swarmers to make sure I have anti-air and anti-ground defenses in, well, a significant number at least. I should probably be building some cyclones as well, because I do have the metaglass after all. I am just not entirely sure where to put those. I guess on this defensive line, because anything that is going to attack me from this direction should be intercepted by my units, either by my units or by these defense. I am going to build a secondary line of defense, however, over here. So I have both the coal and the titanium in reach for my own purposes. Although, maybe I should build it actually over here, because that means I also have some lead available. Okay, so the problem with that is that the ripples over here are actually just in reach of this area, so I'm gonna have to move back a little bit, but since I was at it anyway, I figured, well, why not just make sure I have all the basics coming in. So I have some titanium production over here, I have some copper production, and I'm also getting pretty low on power, but because I now have titanium, I can start scaling up my power production. And with this additional firepower, I should say actual power, we can add some firepower. And to be precise, I made this kind of nice cute little block over here that has a mender, 2 lancers, a couple of swarmers and a salvo, and a couple of ripples. And I am intending to make this kind of my default defensive block. Now obviously you need pyrite for that, but other than that you only need power and of course the required building materials, and everything over here is boosted. So just a couple of these blocks are going to go a very long way in defending any type of facility. And actually, for good measure, I also added in a couple of waves to this, so in case any fires break out, we should have that covered as well. Well, supposedly we have 148 enemies on the map now, which is quite a bit. I'm again wondering if these enemies are just getting stuck upon themselves, or if this is just the AI not wanting to attack into my glorious wall over here. Either way, it is going to be a problem sooner rather than later, but I have a wave incoming here, so I'm hoping this will actually trigger this wave as well. Before I do that, however, maybe just to be safe, I should add in a couple of lancers over here. Well, actually, these things have a terrible range, but yeah, I think we should be fine if we do something like this. Add in just a tiny little bit more defense, just in case the enemy decides to attack me. But as you can see, these waves over here are just getting deleted. Now that was a pretty small wave. Let's see if the bigger one, it's just 4 units, really. Yeah, is this gonna trigger the attack of the rest? Nope, it is not. Well, then I guess I'm just gonna have to poke the bear. Let's go shoot at them with some air units. Nope, nope, they do not want to attack me. Huh, that's a little bit unfortunate. Well, I decided to take a small break because I wanted a little bit more silicon production that I added into my little spaghetti base over here. And then I got a pretty large aerial attack that is now taking out some of my crucial defenses. So yeah, I'm gonna have to actually get those cyclones up and running that I was talking about, I don't know, hours ago, at least in real time. And with all of that up and running, this problem has only become even bigger. I honestly not entirely sure what to do about it, but I'm just gonna take out this base first, and then we'll have to think about how to actually deal with a massive influx of units. Now the good thing is I have a lot of these ripples that are doing a lot of AoE damage, or they will be doing a lot of AoE damage if I actually get attacked. But I'm honestly not entirely convinced this is going to be enough. So before I actually attack, here's what I'm gonna do. I've added in a whole lot of lancers here on the front, just to have a little bit additional firepower. I moved up the entire line of defense as well. And I'm gonna add in a swarmer over here that is probably going to have to shoot at the enemy defenses. I'm hoping that will actually trigger an attack so I can get them to come to me rather than the other way around. Well, be careful what you wish for, I guess, because it worked. I'm just gonna have to see how this plays out. I am going to move my lines up here. Well, this is working a lot better than I was thinking it might. There are definitely some things going down here, though I am not out of the woods just yet. Can I just rebuild this? Yeah, I can. I'm actually wondering where my polys are. Let's pause for a moment. Where are... my polys are all dead? How come? Okay, well, my polys are apparently all dead. I'm not entirely sure what happened to them. But I think I should be able to take out these enemy waves like this just fine. Yep, only 30 enemies remaining. And those are definitely not going to be able to get through here. I'm not sure why they're just standing there. But as long as they're not attacking me, that works for me. So let's see if I can take my Atrexes over here. Oh, there we go. And march them right over here into the enemy base. It's just 16 of them, but I think that should be enough. Let's make sure I'm not gonna get followed by my polys anymore. And there we go, just moving them out slowly. Just walk straight across, you can do it, you can do it, there we go. Let's take out all of that. I should probably just walk over here and see how much damage I can do like that. It's still a little bit interesting that my unit can be attacked. I still keep not expecting that for some reason. These guys are actually doing so low damage. It's interesting, if I don't have them focus fire, they're not really doing anything whatsoever. However, the fire itself is doing quite a lot of damage by the looks of it. And that was not the result I was hoping for. These units are a lot less powerful than I thought they would be, so I'm gonna have to build up a bigger army for the next run. Meanwhile, I'm going to do some aerial harassment. I was able to take out the ripples over there already now, and I am just going to basically take out some small pieces of all these things. There you go. We can start a fire, and hopefully that will be enough to take out a lot of these defense. Now, as you can see, at least I took out the ammunition, so first things first, and that should make it a lot harder for them to actually defend once I do move out. Something else I should have done way earlier in this game is actually set up a couple of these repair points, because repairing your units is a lot cheaper than actually trying to rebuild them every time they die. The nice thing about these naval units is that they have a massive range, so I can just sit out here, out of sight of the range of these enemy turrets, and lay waste to the base. And honestly, the fire is going to do half my work for me, so that is one base taken care of. Well, it's then time to move out to the second base, and I'm just moving my naval units forward because they have that massive range to lure in the enemy units and thereby destroying them. I also did some aerial attacks over here. Apparently some aerial units of my enemy also spawned here. But yeah, as you can see right now, this is just a meat grinder for the enemy. I'm taking out everything they throw at me without too much trouble. They are rebuilding apparently a little bit. It's a bit annoying, but nothing a couple of units over here won't fix. And yeah, I think now it's just a matter of slowly moving forward while we take out any resistance we find along the way. Other than the attack waves that are coming in every minute or so, all these other units seem to be kind of stuck here, and they kind of refuse to come to me unless I shoot them, and then only like the first few actually come close to me. So I'm thinking maybe I can resort to a little bit of a dirty tactic. If I pick a ripple, can I reach them? Barely, at least some of the buildings I can reach. But let's hope this is enough to actually provoke them and get them to start launching themselves towards my defenses. Well, the ripples are actually doing their job. The problem is the enemy units don't seem to particularly care about it. Okay then. Well, for the last 30 minutes or so, I have been doing the exact same thing over and over again. So I'm basically having waves of, I don't know what these are, tier 3, 4 units, walking all over my base, me destroying them, me rebuilding my base, and trying to slowly build up my front line towards the enemy. Because if the enemy is not coming to me, I'll have to come to it. These ripples firing at the enemy are not doing anything other than just destroying random units, but at the same time, I'm not going to be able to destroy this. Well, there is supposed to be a base in here somewhere, I'm not even sure where, probably under all these units. But there's like 400 units there still, so this is starting to get really annoying if I'm quite honest. Well, this is one way to make a level last a long time, and also, I guess, to win it, because I'm again slowly moving up my entire defensive line. I am rebuilding half of it every now and then when a massive amount of units come through. I'm also starting to get in range of these ripples, and if I can't get this thing, like this blob of units, to move before I get into range of these ripples, I'm not entirely sure how I'm actually going to finish this level, so yeah, wish me luck. Well, as it turns out, shooting at this blob of enemies does exactly nothing. They shoot at me, that's for sure, you can actually see this happening over here, but other than that, nothing is really happening. So honestly, I am kind of done with this level. Eradication is a interesting difficulty, but at this point it is just turning the game into a slog, which honestly is just not fun. Luckily, that is nothing that rebooting the level on normal doesn't fix, because that's exactly what I did. That clears out all the enemy units. It does mess up your base a little bit, so I had to restore it to its original order. interesting thing is the game does actually remember what you build where, so you can just kind of repair it, if that makes sense, but it does get kind of destroyed by whatever the AI is able to place down in the few seconds that you're not on the map, because it starts destroying your buildings that are already there and, well, replacing them with whatever it's supposed to be placing there from the beginning of the game. Now, that said, the initial base still was destroyed. There were a couple of turrets that I had to clear out, but that's it. Same goes for this base. So now I can actually just move into this base and clear it out. And I do have to say this area looks a lot better when there's not an enemy base there. Now, you could argue that this is kind of cheating, although, well, playing at normal difficulty is definitely not cheating, but anyway. Yeah, I just don't think this particular campaign is really built towards attacking an enemy base, and playing on Eradication just turns that into kind of a chore rather than it actually being difficult and fun. I mean, fun is a very hard thing to get right. I really like it when you have to kind of stress to make sure you keep your base alive and things like that, and as you saw, I was able to do that just fine. So I think the defense part on Eradication is pretty well balanced, actually. You do have to optimize things in order to make sure you stay alive, but actually pushing out and towards an enemy base where the enemy is just not doing anything. It might just be bugged, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is intentional behavior because the enemy knew it couldn't really attack me, but at the same time, that's kind of the point. So yeah, if I can only build like 50 units myself, there's no way I'm taking on an enemy army of like 400, I believe it was. Mostly tier 2, 3 units. So yeah. Anyway, let me know in the comments. Maybe it's something I was missing, but provoking the enemy didn't seem to work. Building turrets next to the enemy didn't work. I'm not entirely sure what else I could have done to win this fair and square on Eradication, rather than just rebooting like I just did. Anyway, interesting experience for sure. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you're still here, you're awesome. I do hope to catch you in the next one.